up, LSU baseball moves to 4-0 on the young season with a win over the Kent State Golden Flashes on Monday night in Alex Box Stadium by a final score of 10-7. Plus, LSU football safeties coach Jake Olson is staying in Baton Rouge with the Tigers for the 2026 season after reports last Friday that he might be leaving for the NFL and taking the job with the Washington Commanders. He is not. He is staying with LSU and with Lane Kiffin in Baton Rouge and Blake Baker for the 2026 season. We will get into that and so much more on a brand new edition of the Babin on the Bayou show. I'm your host, as always, Justin Babin Jr. It is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Happy Mardi Gras, folks. Happy Fat Tuesday. Hope you folks are doing well. Hope you and your family are in good health and having a great week so far. I thank you, as always, for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in on another episode of the Babin on the Bayou show on this Tuesday, February 17th. But let's get right into it. Again, LSU baseball moved to 4-0 last night with a win over Kent State in the box by a final score of 10-7. Let's get into our recap of that one. And look, there are two names we have to lead off in talking about, recapping this weekend, because really opening weekend is done, and especially in the game last night and really what they did over the weekend as well. The two names we have to talk about to start are Jake Brown and Gavin Guidry. And we'll start with Jake Brown, because Jake Brown, folks, is on an absolute heater. He's on an absolute tear at the plate. He had 2 homers in the game 3 on Sunday against Milwaukee, and then he added another 2 homers on Monday night, last night against Kent State. So he's got 4 bombs in the last 2 games alone. He's got 8 RBIs in the last 2 games alone. He had 4 homers over a 12-inning stretch from the game against Milwaukee on Sunday to the first 3 innings of the game last night against Kent State. In that 12-inning stretch, Jake Brown hit 4 bombs. He's just on fire, in fuego, one of the leaders, one of the captains on this team, one of the veterans, a guy we talked about a lot in the preseason as stepping up into a leadership role, one of the veterans as a junior on this team, a national champion from the team last season in 2025, and Jake Brown has just been on fire at the plate lately. I don't know why you pitch to him if you're Kent State, if you're Milwaukee, if you're whoever, with what he's doing at the plate lately. He's just been absolutely on fire, again hitting 4 bombs in his last 2 games at the plate. The Tigers as an offense had 13 total hits in the game against Kent State last night. Freshman Mason Braun hit his first homer as a Tiger. He had an opposite field 3-run bomb in the 3rd inning, I believe, for Mason Braun's first homer as a Tiger. We talked about Mason Braun, the freshman, a lot. He's a guy that Jay Johnson and his staff really like. Again, out of the 2025 high school class, he was the top ranked. He was the number 1 first baseman in America coming out of the 2025 high school signing class, and he hit his first bomb as a Tiger last night, and it was an impressive one. An opposite field one hit down the left field line, near the left field foul pole, and it was very impressive. That first homer for Mason Braun, it was a 3-run bomb. Zach York hit another solo blast as well in the 6th inning for his second homer of the season. York had 3 hits total in the game last night, so Zach York continues. We talked about him as a complete hitter coming over as a transfer from Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's all-time leader in home runs and RBIs, and he continues to produce through the first 4 games of the season, does Zach York. Look, this LSU offense, they had a pretty good night last night. They scored in every inning up until the 7th and the 8th innings. So they scored in the first 6 innings of the game last night. Tanner Reeves and Trent Caraway both had RBIs. Seth Dardar has just been an on-base machine. He had 2 homers over the weekend in the 3-game series against Milwaukee. And then last night he reached base in his first 3 at-bats via 3 walks in his first 3 at-bats. Just getting on base, an on-base machine. Seth Dardar has really impressed me recently in the first 4 games of the season. It was a good hitting night overall for the Tigers. And again, Jake Brown is the one who leads the way. Just been on fire at the plate lately with 4 bombs in his last 2 games. But let's move to the guy on the pitcher's mound that we got to talk about, and that's Gavin Guidry. And Gavin Guidry has just come in 2 relief appearances in the first 4 games and absolutely shoved. And he's been so dominant. He came in the game with, it was a close game. It was only a 3-run game. It was 10-7 last night when Gavin Guidry came in with 2 outs in the 7th inning and just shoved again for the final 2 1/3 innings, getting his first save of the season. Look, the numbers for Gavin Guidry speak to how dominant he's been through 2 outings in LSU's first 4 games. In his first 2 outings of the season thus far, Guidry has seen 14 batters. Only 1 of those batters has reached base, and he has struck out 10 of the 14 batters that he has seen so far this season with 1 win and 1 save. Gavin Guidry has been so highly impressive. I mean, we knew about, a key part of this team in 2023, a closer for this team in 2024, a back injury in 2025 cost him his 2025 season, but he's come back in 2026 and he looks as good as ever. He's got more velocity, increased velocity on his fastball than he has in past years, and he's got, his breaking pitch his breaker is just one of the best maybe the best on this team. It's so impressive and it's nasty. It causes a lot of trouble to opposing hitters. So Gavin Guidry, Jake Brown on the offense stood out to me, and of course Gavin Guidry has just come in 2 outings so far and absolutely been dominant again. 10 strikeouts in the 14 batters that he has faced. Only 1 batter and of those 14 has reached base. He's got a win and a save so far in 2 outings on the season. Gavin Guidry has just been extremely impressive. Jaden Newt got the start on Monday night against Kent State for LSU. Jaden Newt wasn't great. He wasn't as good as he could be. He was really solid and consistent for LSU last season in 2025. Had a couple good outings out of the bullpen in Omaha for the Tigers. Last night in 3 innings, he wasn't great, but he was decent. He went 3 innings, gave up 3 runs on 3 hits, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. So he wasn't great, but he was decent. Obviously, stepping into getting into a rhythm in the season, he'll develop. We saw Jaden Newt. We saw him develop into a consistent bullpen option for you. Even started a couple games last season. You remember he started the game against Ole Miss in the SEC tournament last season. Jaden Newt getting his first time on the mound last night for the season. His first outing on the season last night for LSU. He gave up a 3-run bomb in the 3rd. That made it a 4-3 game at the time in the 3rd inning. LSU 4-3, but Jaden Newt gave up a 3-run bomb in the 3rd. 3 guys who were impressive in 1 inning of work each. Ethan Plog pitched in the 4th. Devin Sheeran pitched in the 5th. And Maverick Rizzi pitched in the 6th. And they all did a pretty good job not giving up a run. Each of those pitchers in Plog, Sheeran, and Rizzi pitched one inning each, and they were pretty impressive. LSU did end up giving up 4 runs in the 7th when DJ Primo, the lefty, walked a batter and then hit a batter as well. And then Grant Fontenot came in and gave up 3 hits, including a bases clearing 3 RBI double before Gavin Guidry came in the game and just shoved. Gavin Guidry is the standout performer, the standout pitcher through 4 games so far with the 2 outings, the 2 dominant outings that he has had out of the pen so far for you. I said Cooper Moore, the starter on Saturday, was a standout guy to me as well. I thought he was excellent on Saturday in his first start for the Tigers, but Gavin Guidry has also been excellent as well. I liked what I've seen out of Devin Sheeran and Maverick Rizzi. They've been pretty good in their 2 outings that they pitched as well so far. Sheeran and Rizzi. Plog was pretty good yesterday. Plog is a guy that the staff has talked about a lot as going to be a good lefty option for you out of the pen potentially. And just as we go through, again, You've only played 4 games so far. You got like 20 plus non-conference games before you even get into your first SEC series. Your first SEC game isn't until March 13th when you go on the road to play at Vanderbilt. But what you want to do is you want to think about, and I'll do this after every weekend, and we'll get into it right now. You want to think about kind of position battles, how guys are aligning, how guys are impressing this coaching staff, because you want, going into March 13th, which you have 3 weeks until then. So you've only played 4 games so far. Still a lot of things gotta work itself out. But going into March 13th, going into SEC play, you want to have answers. You want to have some answers to who are some of the guys I trust out of the pen, who are the guys I trust in the starting rotation, who's kind of been the go-to guys at the plate for me going into SEC play. And I think when you look at it, your stars at the plate this weekend, Jake Brown, again, had a heck of a weekend. So did Cade Aaron Beatty. Zach York was really impressive. Derek Curiel started finding his way after a rough, not a rough outing at Friday and Saturday, but he struck out 3 times on Friday, struck out another time on Saturday, but he had 3 hits and 3 RBIs and started seeing the ball well on Sunday's game against Milwaukee. Again, Seth Dardar has been highly impressive to me as a guy that has stood out. And we talked about coming into the season how second base between Dardar, Braden Simpson, and Tanner Reeves was the position to look out for with the most competition. And there's still going to be a rotation. Obviously, there's still going to be a lot there. I still want to see what Simpson and Reeves can potentially do as well. But I think out of those three, Seth Dardar was definitely played the best and was the most impressive in these first 4 games in opening weekend. Seth Dardar has been very impressive for the Tigers. Through 4 games, the Tigers pitching staff as a whole has struck out 64 batters, so 64 Ks in the first 4 games of the season for this Tigers pitching staff. Again, really impressive. You don't talk about this a lot, but you got to remember, and Nate Yeskie, LSU pitching coach, he's the LSU pitching coach in his 3rd year. In his first 2 years as the pitching coach for the Tigers in 2024 and 2025, in both of those years, LSU finished the season leading the country as a pitching staff in total strikeouts, and they're doing that again with 64 Ks through the first 4 games. You got a really deep pitching staff with guys that you're looking to get a lot of work in for a lot of different guys over these first 4 weeks of non-conference play. When you look at the lineup in the past 4 games, it is interesting that Chris Stanfield didn't play at all on Sunday or Monday. I believe Braden Simpson got the start in left field on Sunday, and Tanner Reeves got the start in left field on Monday night. Stanfield's obviously, when SEC play comes around, he's going to be your starting left fielder. You love Chris Stanfield. Obviously, Jay Johnson raves about his character and his work as a leader. But I think you're trying to get a lot of guys a lot of work in the early season. That's why you put Simpson in left field. That's why you put Reeves in left field. That's why, Jack Ruckert coming in late in the games as a defensive replacement at second base. So you're trying to mix and match, put in a lot of guys, get them some work really early on, and get them set for, again, after these first 4 weeks of non-conference play, SEC play is where you're going to have, you want to have some answers heading into SEC play. But again, it's a 56-game grind of the season, and guys go on hot streaks, they go on cold streaks, they have slumps. You have all these things that make baseball what baseball is. But through the first 4 games, what I've noticed is, again, I think your top 2 guys on the mound through 4 games are Gavin Guidry in a relief role, has looked dominant, and I thought Cooper Moore was awesome as a starter for you on Saturday. Also like what I've seen out of Devin Sheeran, Maverick Rizzi, Ethan Plog was good last night as well. And then at the plate, Jake Brown has absolutely raked. But again, you have some transfers that have looked really good as well. And Zach York, Trent Caraway, and Seth Dardar especially. And your guys like Derek Curiel eventually, gonna see the ball well. Cade Aaron Beatty also had a good weekend as well. So the Tigers, again, have a loaded team, a loaded pitching staff, a loaded lineup. Really like what I've seen out of the Tigers in the 3 games against Milwaukee and the game against Kent State last night. The Tigers do not play today on Tuesday, and their next game is tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. They will be hosting in Alex Box Stadium, Nicholls State. So that'll be, again, the Tigers hosting Nicholls State tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. in Alex Box Stadium. The Colonels coming over from Thibodaux, Louisiana to take on the Tigers. So that'll definitely be one to the next game to pay attention to. And I'm interested in, of course, the Tigers going to Jacksonville to play this weekend in the Live Like Lou Jacks Baseball Classic against 3 Power 4 teams. They play Indiana, the Hoosiers, on Friday. They play Notre Dame on Saturday, and they play Central Florida UCF on Sunday. So that's going to be an interesting one. Really impressive. Good start to the season for the Tigers, as always, doing what they need to do in non-conference play. And we'll kind of recap throughout non-conference play how these position battles, mainly at second base, are playing out. Who do I think is taking the lead for the guys that have impressed the most so far out of the bullpen and as a pitching staff? And again, Guidry, Cooper Moore, your top 2 arms that have been so far. You like what you've seen out of Sheeran, Rizzi, Plog, and some other guys as well. And then you've really had a bunch of guys step up at the plate through 4 games. I believe you had 17 hits in the game on Sunday, and then you had 13 hits against Kent State last night. So really swinging the bat well lately. But again, that is my recap of LSU's 10-7 win last night in Alex Box Stadium Monday night over the Kent State Golden Flashes. Tigers' next game tomorrow, Wednesday, 1 p.m. against the Nicholls State Colonels coming in town from Thibodaux, Louisiana. All right, let me take the time to tell you about our wonderful daily sponsors here at the Babin on the Bayou show over at Shield Heating and Cooling. And when you're talking about the team at Shield Heating and Cooling, a team of experts with multiple decades of experience and as experts in the AC industry, and I want to reward you guys for always faithfully tuning into the show. I really appreciate my audience, so I want to give something away. If you call the best team in the business today over at Shield Heating and Cooling at the number 225-46-BAYOU, that's 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U. You call the team at Shield Heating and Cooling today at that number. Tell them you heard about them from the Babin on the Bayou show, and I'll be giving away free AC system cleaning checks for every AC system in your home, whether that's 1 AC system in your home or 4 or 5 AC systems in your home. It doesn't really matter. Call the best team in the business today over at Shield Heating and Cooling at the number 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U, to take a part in this amazing giveaway. Top tier service, reliable, trustworthy service from the best team in the business, completely free to you. Saving you money on, again, free AC cleaning checks for every AC system in your home. If you call Shield Heating and Cooling today at that number 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U, that's Shield Heating and Cooling, your local comfort defenders. Again, the best team in the business, and we greatly appreciate Shield Heating and Cooling for being the title sponsors, the daily title sponsors of the Babin on the Bayou show. All right, so we haven't talked a ton of LSU football lately, kind of a dead period. Spring practice for LSU football doesn't start until late March 24th, I believe. But there was a report that came out last Friday that Jake Olson, who is the LSU safeties coach and has been the LSU safeties coach for the past 2 seasons in 2024 and 2025 under Blake Baker, it was reported that Jake Olson was leaving LSU for the NFL to take a coaching job as an assistant coach in the NFL for the Washington Commanders. But it was reported yesterday that ultimately Jake Olson has indeed decided to stay in Baton Rouge, stay with Lane Kiffin, stay with Blake Baker as LSU safeties coach in his 3rd season for the 2026 season. And listen, this offseason has been so freaking impressive for Lane Kiffin and LSU football. You think about the transfer portal class you brought in, you think about the high school class you brought in, and this coaching staff is elite. You brought in basically your whole offensive staff from Ole Miss. You brought all of those guys over with Charlie Weiss Jr. leading the way as the offensive coordinator, one of the best and brightest young offensive minds in the sport of college football. And then you retain most of the staff and Blake Baker and basically the entire defensive staff outside of having to hire a new defensive line coach and Sterling Lucas. You also bring in Chris Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's brother, over. You bring him to help Blake Baker with the linebackers as well. But you retained a lot of your defensive staff, keeping Corey Raymond, keeping Jake Olson, keeping Kevin Peoples, keeping all of those guys, Blake Baker especially. But look, alignment is the key. Alignment is what you want in a program. You want, from the top down, you want there to be a lot of cohesion, working together. You want to see the clear vision for your football program, for any program. You want alignment, you want cohesion, you want chemistry, and I think you're seeing that right now. Look, Blake Baker was thinking and considering about taking the Tulane head coaching job in December. You ultimately got Blake Baker, gave him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he decided to stay on as the defensive coordinator for you in 2026. Then you moved to Charlie Weiss Jr., and Charlie Weiss Jr. was being pursued to, go and take the offensive coordinator job with the New York Giants and Coach Jackson Dart. He was also interviewed for the OC job with the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL. So that was a concern. Ultimately, Charlie Weiss Jr. stays with LSU, and he does not leave for the NFL, stays with Lane Kiffin. And then you have Jake Olson, who's being pursued and is thinking about taking a job in the NFL, an assistant job with the Washington Commanders, and he ultimately decides to stay in Baton Rouge with Lane Kiffin as well. And you see the vision starting to align for this LSU staff and for this LSU football program. Look, there was a lot of turmoil and a lot of controversy and a lot of rumors going around, when Brian Kelly was the head coach here. And with everything going on, especially in the last season in 2025, the way Garrett Nussmeier's injury was handled from a press standpoint didn't make sense. You had so many things that just didn't go well, from Joe Sloan to the offensive line to whatever. It just, at the end, it just seemed like so much turmoil, so much controversy, and fans were just over it, and you were ready to move on from BK. But now with Lane Kiffin, you bring in perhaps the best transfer portal class we've ever seen in the history of college football, perhaps. You bring in a dynamite high school signing class, especially on the defensive line. For sure, one of your best defensive line high school recruiting classes that you ever seen at LSU. Bringing guys like Lamar Brown in, Richard Anderson. Lamar Brown, the number one athlete in the country. Richard Anderson, the number one defensive tackle in the country. Your 2 5-stars on the defensive line. And then from a staff perspective, again, the Ole Miss staff produced under Lane Kiffin. They produced every single year. Every single year for 6 seasons at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin finished with a top 6 rushing offense in the SEC. I mean, you finished with the top offense in the SEC at Ole Miss in both 2024 and 2025. You bring basically that entire staff over from Ole Miss to coach LSU offensively in 2026, outside of a guy in Eric Wolford, who you bring over as your new offensive line coach, who's coached with Nick Saban. He's coached many, many years for many, many programs in the SEC. And then you retain most of your defensive staff that led a really good defensive unit in 2025, a top 25 overall defensive unit in 2025. And you got to think about the amazing work that Blake Baker and that defensive staff have done over the past 2 seasons, considering where this defense was. It was a terrible unit, a terrible secondary, perhaps statistically the worst defense we've ever seen at LSU in 2023, and in 2 seasons, you turn that around to a top 25 unit in the country in 2025. You retain most of those guys, and again, I thought Jake Olson and Corey Raymond as a unit did a great job with the secondary in 2025. You think about Montour Delane, a guy who's going to be a first-round draft pick, was, a Thorpe Award finalist for the best corner in the country in 2025. AJ Halsey was also ended up being an All-American and receiving postseason honors as well as your starting safety. So Jake Olson and Corey Raymond, the guys that did a really great job with the secondary in 2025. You retain those guys, you bring those guys back. So my point is, everything is aligning and everything is shaping up to, for fall practice, for spring practice, and then you get into the fall, and then you ultimately get into the 2026 season starting September 5th in Tiger Stadium when you host Clemson in week 1. And everything's aligning for the staff. You have a great roster. You're going to have a top 10, a top 15, potentially top 10 best roster in America going into the 2026 season. And you have an elite staff, from what the staff produced over at Ole Miss. You bring all those guys over on the offensive side of the ball. And then you saw what this defensive staff did for LSU in 2025. So everything is aligning. You got a little bit of a dead period. That's why we haven't talked much about football lately, because we're kind of moving into mainly talking about baseball for sure, and we've been talking about a little bit of women's basketball. But again, spring practice doesn't start until, I believe, the first day of spring practice for LSU football is March 24th. So when that time comes, we'll definitely cover that and a lot of that. But again, you have Blake Baker. You keep him away from Tulane. You keep Charlie Weiss away from the NFL, and now you keep Jake Olson away from the NFL. It really seems like this staff, this team, this program as a whole is buying into the vision that Lane Kiffin is selling. And I'm so excited for this 2026 season and what the Tigers can do with this roster and with this coaching staff. We're about to get out of here. LSU men's basketball is back in action tonight. They go on the road to Austin, Texas to play the Texas Longhorns. That game is at 8 p.m. on the SEC network. But again, unfortunately, the season is over for the Tigers. Basically, they have a 2-10 record in SEC conference play. And the news came out last week that their best player in guard DJ Thomas will be out for the rest of the season in 2026 due to a left foot surgery. So the season is over for the Tigers and men's basketball. Really disappointing season. I don't know how Matt McMahon is back on the sidelines for LSU next season. I don't see that being a possibility with what he's done in 4 years as the head coach at LSU. Just not good enough. We've gone through all those numbers. We've gone through everything in regards to that. But men's basketball back in action tonight against Texas at 8 p.m. on the SEC network. But again, season's over, and that's unfortunate. But I'm so excited for baseball being back. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I absolutely love, eat, sleep, and breathe LSU baseball. And just a great first 4 games. A lot of guys stepping up. We've highlighted some of the guys that have stepped up, and just interested. This is always the funnest part is going and breaking things down and highlighting the guys that stand out to me, the guys that stand out to y'all. So I want to know in the comments down below. Let me know who stands out to you. What has stand out to y'all through the first 4 games, to the first really opening weekend. Now that opening weekend is over for LSU baseball, what are your thoughts? What do you think about this team heading into, again, you got 4 out of 56 games played, so you still got a long ways to go. But again, just so excited, so hyped up that LSU baseball is finally back. But that is all I have for the show today. I thank you folks as always for tuning in. Remember to like the video, share the video, tell a friend if they're an LSU sports lover, if they love LSU baseball, whatever. Just tell a friend about the show. Remember to like, share, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already. Thank you folks as always for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. So pumped to be covering this baseball team all season long. And always remember, God bless, go Tigers, and have a great one.